right, so this weekend was a weekend for winners and losers.
Coffee in your cup. Enjoy on the set. A super morning show is always the best. On Joy 99.7 FM.
Alright for Ghana. Up and
Joy 99.7 FM.
For weather and seek your future. People love bend our God.
Joy 99.7 FM.
The NDCs shall lead. Democrat Ghana. Our strength in unity. From billion to billion.
Coffee in your cup. Enjoy on the set. A super morning show is always the best. On Joy 99.7 FM.
Yeah. The spirit of competition was in the air in the NDC on Saturday as they made some crucial decisions about their front line in the fight for 2024. And they made some interesting choices, very interesting in some cases, some very predictable in other cases. And some people have, they've been kicked out.
Yes, they wouldn't get back to Parliament on the ticket of the NDC. Maybe they may decide to go independent, but on the NDC's ticket, they're never coming back to Parliament.
Yeah, and some of those names are big. ABA Fuseni. That's perhaps the one that is generating the most talk.
Also because of
he was quite a colorful character. But what does it mean? Like before we bring in our guests, because we got two guests who won this past weekend, and we're going to be speaking to Muntaka Mubarak, who retained his position as candidate for Asawase constituency, and Sam George, who did so in Ningo-Prampram. We'll talk to them both in just a short while. But before they come on, the fact that 16, and some are reporting 17 incumbents were kicked out. What are the delegates telling the party?
Obia Fotagana. I'm going to tell you who is Miscarafa. Only the Pilar Rusuta, the farm super,
They don't campaign against electoral laws to campaign on election day.
I mean, that's not to campaign, it's to clarify a statement that you had made.
Oh, you are asking me to go back into my campaign. You want to, why have they sent you to come and tie my leg so that then they will say that some judge was campaigning on election day? Blood of Jesus.
My father wasn't here in 2020, but I won the election with an increment in my votes from 4,000 to 8,000. So I have a bigger father. God in heaven. The spirit of my father is behind me as well. So. And my people have worked. We've all done a lot of work. So this is not something that is just happening by default. A lot of work has gone into where we are today.
Lies can only punish the truth, but lies can never overtake the truth. I am very grateful for the people of Asawase that despite all these years of service, they continue to have this love and trust in me. I thank each and every one of you, especially the media, for spending all this time to cover all these programs from the very start of the campaign till today. I am really grateful, and I pray that the good Lord will to bless all of us. You can win, you can lose, but I'm very positive. Why would I pull out? I mean, I have paid the filing fee, I've done everything. So why would I pull out? This is democracy. Kebi. This is my region. I've been the mayor of Kumasi before, so I'm only visiting my brothers and sisters during voting time to see if there's calm in the constituency.
Your chances and your predictions.
Inshallah, we said it.
You came to support your son, but are you confident that he's going to win? You will win, hands down. Honorable, you sound so confident. You sound so confident that Dufo Jr. is winning.
He is winning. Hands down. Okay.
With this one was they waited till the last 3 days to the elections and then decided to file an injunction on the process and then later withdrew the injunction and then withdrew from the contest. It made it very difficult to deal with some of the issues they were raising at that time.
We were given the task to help supervise your elections for you, but these are the results. You have John Dramani Mahama with 297,603. In percentage terms, it should be 98.9%. Then Kojo Bonsu, he had 3,181. In percentage terms, it's 1.1. So we had in total 4,653 rejected ballots. The valid votes were 300,784, and the total vote cast was 305,437. On behalf of the chairperson of the commission, I duly declare His Excellency John Dramani Mahama duly elected with 98.9%.
All of you would have known the difficulties that had beset us, but we, as leaders of the party, were very determined that what is ahead of this country is so important, and these primaries are a very important indication that this party is prepared to do everything possible to ensure that victory is achieved come December 7, 2024. That's right after this, the real journey begins. This is the moment that we were waiting for, to have the leader of our party, to also have a good set of our parliamentary candidates. We are going to quickly now move into action to make sure we wrap up the remaining constituencies that we have not yet done.
One notable thing that we found has also been that money does not decide who get the votes in NDC anymore. But we are happy that so far the quality of candidates that have been produced in this election give us confidence that we'll go into 2024 and win presidential and win a significant majority in parliament, and also deliver on the charge of rescuing this country. We are not going to say we have the men. We want the men to prove themselves, for you to say that, yes, NDC, you have the men.
Morning Show.
That's right. There's no better political analysis team than your election headquarters. And so, of course, today we have to do the exit poll, if you will, for the NDC primaries. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, let's speak to two people who emerged triumphant on Saturday. From Asawase constituency, Muntaka Mubarak is the Honourable Member of Parliament. And for Ningo-Prampram, it's Mr. Samuel Nartey George who represents them in the big house. Gentlemen, good morning to you both.
Good morning. Hello, good morning. The line is very faint here.
We apologize.
We're struggling to hear you.
Is it any better now? Can you hear me a bit better, a bit clearer now?
Still very faint.
Okay, I apologize. I'll try and get straight to the point. Mr. Sam George, congratulations. What do you think worked for you?
Well, thank you, and very good morning to your listeners, and very good morning to my leader, Honorable Muntaka, and congratulations to him. I'm excited that he won his seat again. Well, I think that what happened, or what worked for me in Ningo-Prampram, is simply that the delegates in Ningo-Prampram, like the delegates of the NDC across the country, have their focus on winning 2024 and identify what loyalty is, what hard work is, and what it means to be true to the cause of the NDC. They simply rewarded loyalty and hard work and dedication to the cause. And for that, I say a very big thank you to them.
I guess same question to the Honourable Member of Parliament for Asawase.
Well, let me thank you sincerely and thank your listeners. And say that, well,
It was a very interesting contest. And for me, like you played my voice, it was simply the fight between the truth and the lies. And I'm sure the truth stood, just as we all know, the truth will always stand. So I just want to thank my delegates too for standing with me. I mean, nobody has served in that constituency as long as me. And but they continue to trust me and continue to believe me, despite all the lies that was being perpetrated, not only individuals from within the constituency, the massive numbers outside the constituency who were doing everything for whatever reason best known to themselves to get me out. But thank God, God has kept me in, and we will continue to work for the best interest of our party and our country.
So the two of you have quite a lot in common. In fact, your constituencies are both NDC strongholds historically, but also you were both expected to be facing quite a tough challenge from at least one of your contenders. And both of you ended up winning by respectable margins, suggesting that the challenge was not as tough as people thought. Why, for example, in Ningo-Prampram, why did it seem as if you were facing the battle of your life, Sam George?
I like to sensationalize hype. A lot of the noise was perpetrated by the media, persons in the media who, for whatever reason,
oh dear, have we lost Sam George? Let's please try and reconnect with him as quickly as possible. In the meantime, we'll hear Mr. Muntaka's response.
Well, are you asking me the same question you asked him?
Yes, please. Yeah, it seemed as if you were poised for a battle to the death, but in the end, your margin was quite respectable.
Well, let me say that I mean, it's God who has done it once again. Because you see, when for no reasons best known to those who wanted to perpetrate it, all of a sudden tell you like you are an anti-NDC. When you put almost all your life online for NDC, I was wondering where those things were coming from. And they were preparing this on media and social media, the mainstream media, and creating, I mean, a lot of tension outside and making it look that there's so much tension in. Well, I must also admit, many of the instances, I had to control my supporters because I keep telling them, look, this is a battle that we are going to win. So don't be distracted. Because if you get a national officer who comes into my constituency to join my opponent to campaign, and nobody in the party says anything, I mean, this was something that I would never tolerate as a whip. You can't do that to any of my MPs when I was a whip, and you will not get that person questioned. But this was like, oh, everything's okay. You have people saying all manner of things, people calling people within the constituency, and sometimes they record them. I said, oh, don't play it. This is not a battle that we have to do it on social media. Those who think that social media is the one who wins the election, let them keep there. We believe in the truth, and the truth in Asawase is there to see. Since I came, I mean, I've been in the Lions Den. You see, there's this impression that is constantly being created. Oh, Asawase is a safe seat. My brother, this is what we've been working on to make it safe. But believe me, it is not as safe as you think. If you say that's not true, go and check the records from Asqua East all the way when we came to Asawase, and look at how it has grown. By the grace of God, God has used me to grow Asawase into a big constituency. When I first started, Asawase was hovering with just about 30,000 votes. And you see MPP very at neck to neck with us. We've been able to grow it this big. It has become a shining example in the city. It has put so much pressure on my colleagues in the MPP in the region. We are 11 in the constituency, in the region, in the city. Asawase stands out. We've worked so hard over the period. Now people try to use social media. There are a lot of young people who have just joined as delegates, who are just, imagine somebody who is 24 today, who had voted for the first time in 2020. When I became a member of parliament, that person was just 5 years. The person didn't know how the constituency was. Today he walks out of his house, and when it rains, he doesn't have to step into mud the man into his room. He goes to the Makaranta madrasas, the Islamic school, and it is blocked. There are enough sufficient furniture, so he sits. So they tell him that, oh, you followed NDC and you follow Muntaka, all this. What do you get as individual? And you see all these lies being perpetrated and all that, and you see people outside the constituency, for whatever reason, only God knows, we're doing all these things.
Now, talking about people, Honorable Muntaka, which national officer came to campaign against you?
Look, between you and I have put in all this thing behind me. I'm not going to mention names to glorify those persons. Because I mentioned the person, and now you have to call that person, oh, I was passing through, oh, it won't really mean that. Then I glorify that person. I'm putting all this.
Is it that same person?
If you put your ears to the ground, you will know who I'm talking about.
So I'm asking, is it that same person who joined your competitor to break fast?
Well, I won't mention any name. I'm just telling you that.
No, I'm just asking if it's that person.
People have done all this. I mean, there were people who were calling business people not to support me, to rather support the young guy. All this happened, and I was asking NDC, Muntaka, is that my reward? But you see, the larger party, I have massive support from the larger party. So I'm not going to use the few people who have shown so much hatred for whatever reason best known to them, to me, to paint the whole of NDC. I am so grateful that I still have a great party. Yes, some people have really been terrible. I mean, during this campaign, they've done everything. Even people that who today are fending from my sweat. When I said they are benefiting from my sweat, my brother, with all humility, with respect, everybody in this country knows I had to stood in with my life online for us to be able to get a speaker. That speaker has produced an office that you have a lot of NDC people working, people who, by the grace of God, through that sweat, today they're able to travel abroad and do other things. All of them were then all ganging up again. You think God is your village chief? God doesn't put people to shame because you just want to put them to shame. God looks at our heart and our mind. But thank God, God has saved me from this. And believe me, from the bottom of my heart, I put all this in behind me. I mean, this is an election we must win because it hinges on the survival of our party. But my plea to the two political parties is that, look, we cannot continue doing this excessive partisanship. I will say it at the least opportunity. It is what people hate to hear. We are too partisan. We are destroying our democracy. This excessive partisan by the two political parties would never help our democracy. The epitome of democracy everywhere in the world is parliament. You cannot sit in a political party office and be writing letters to parliamentarians. These two political parties are doing it. It is wrong. It is wrong today. It will be wrong tomorrow. It will forever remain wrong. They should just know that, look, being elected into a national office doesn't put you above a member of parliament. The member of parliament is a national officer. There cannot be two truths, an NDC truth and an MPP truth. We all know there's always one truth at all times. And the national interest is bigger than each of the political parties. The political parties must understand that. The national interest is bigger than NDC, is bigger than MPP. Let us work for the interest of our country. Look, I'm in my 50s. I don't think I will live another 50 years on this earth. I cannot be afraid, whether in a meeting or in the chamber of parliament, to speak my mind. Let's allow dissent. That is the essence of democracy. That you are in a meeting. People just don't want to hear dissent. People just don't want to hear that. No, we can't do it this way because when we do it this way, it is wrong. People just don't want to hear that. People just think that we can just be in a command and control situation. Right. I pray that we are able to understand. Yes, and you don't do it because another person is doing it. But MPP is doing it. That is why we are different. That is why we have our supporters are different from their supporters. And then between the two supporters, we have this, what we all call floating voters. They judge us by what we say and do. Not just because MPP is doing something, we must also do. We cannot run this country that way. We'll be destroying our democracy. Look at recently. You remember, what do you call it, Senator Sanders, who had been in the American Congress, who has contested presidential elections in America, who knows much about American history, stood against America as a country in this Ukraine war. with his statement on the Senate floor, saying that, look, we as America would never allow what we are asking Ukraine to do to Russia. Because in the 60s, we were here, we said we would never allow USSR to set up a base in Cuba, 90 kilometers away from our shores. Today, we want to go and set up NATO next to its neighbor, where there's only a borderline between them. This is what we talk about, current of truth. Yeah. You stand by what you believe. And if in a democracy, as a parliamentarian, in a party, there's no space for people to be able to say that, then we should question whether we are truly practicing democracy.
So that's a profound question. If you don't mind, I'd like to bring in...
they are calm and patient and listening to me, never allow some of these excesses to derail the effort. Can you imagine, in Asawase, the ballot paper of the candidate, the parliamentary, the presidential came without the parliamentary. It is the reason why you saw our elections run deep into the night. It was enough to create chaos, but we had to struggle to hold on to supporters. They can't believe. I've worked in the electoral commission before. As a polling agent, as what have you with electoral commission. I know how this process go. I've contested 5 straight elections. I've supported other candidates in 3 other elections before myself. How do you send ballot papers to a constituency and you send only presidential without a parliamentary? And you want people to believe that there were no deliberate attempts to frustrate the election in that constituency. But you are not God. God is not your village chief. God doesn't hate because you hate people. So I want to plead with all of us in the NDC to know, we don't need to like each other to work together. But there are things that we do. When we do, it affects good governance within our own system. And it tells floating voter that these people, we can't trust them. But the larger group are working very hard. They are working very well. Let us be mindful about our individual excesses. It doesn't help. It doesn't help democracy. It doesn't help our party. I thank God that we'll be able to survive it. This Sam George, if he comes online, find out from him. This LGBTQ thing that we are fighting. If he'll be truthful with you, we have people within our party who are saying, why are you people disturbing us with this? Is this our headache? Is it not the government matter? Why are we in opposition? Who would they want to get power? And therefore, why are you fighting this? And I tell the president, look, it is not about getting power. It is about getting power to do the right thing. We believe that this LGBT thing is nonsense. We will fight it. So, yes, we are in opposition, but we are leading the fight. We won't lead it because we just want power. So we want power. So we want the international community to believe us and support our party so we can get power. So that power, we'll use it to destroy our country. No, we will continue to fight for the LGBT. We will not be mentioning names because, we also we've sworn an oath. We are party people. We've fought for our party. We'll die for our party. But how do you label some people rebels within a party simply because they have a dissenting view?
Okay.
You don't do that in a democracy.
Talking about Sam George, he's joined us back. So let's just get to Sam George.
Yeah, so sorry about that. We lost you at a point. You were explaining that the media is behind a lot of the noise and hype that was coming around the stiffness of the competition before the election.
Yes, with the greatest respect to the media, we know the role that new media, social media plays in feeding a lot of traditional media with content. And when persons decide not to work on the ground, but to engage in mercenary social media campaigns where they pay people to hype them on social media, and traditional media picks up on that and begins to run those people as though they are the newest messiahs in town, and paint a picture that others had lost touch on the ground. The reality always comes out in the ballot box. I'd always made the point that, and you know this, I stay away from the media when it gets to campaign times. I don't talk about my elections. I don't talk about my campaign because I keep saying that I would make my largest emphatic statement on the pin sheet when the results are declared. And so the hype, the noise, as I will call it, because it was noise, very nauseating noise at a point in time about Sam George losing the ground, not being wanted, about someone being the chosen one and all those things. For those of us on the ground, for me and my team and the delegates in Ningo-Prampram, we kept saying the people who were making the noise were not delegates. When President Mahama came to my constituency, I mean, the other guy went and hired Jama groups and wore T-shirts for them. It was a party meeting, so it wasn't just delegates who were in there. And he brought them in there, paid them to come there and make noise. When his name was called, he had a very loud cheer, and everybody concluded that Sam George had lost. I saw all the commentaries, even on traditional media, that he had the largest cheer, and so that spells doom. And I asked myself, what kind of journalism is this? What kind of empirical evidence are you running with? Have you decided to see who were making the noise and who were not making the noise? Well, the true delegates made the noise with their thumbprints yesterday or 2 days ago and on Saturday, and I think that it should be a lesson for the media. This is not the first time. In 2015, when I was contesting Honorable E.T. Mensah, similar noises were made. The media had to eat the humble pie. In 2016 with Sly, when I contested in the general election, same thing happened. In 2019, against the same candidate, same thing happened. 2020, it happened. It's happened again in 2023. I think you should learn a lesson in 2024 and be careful how you call elections in Ningo-Prampram. Come to the ground, speak to the real delegates, understand what the issues are, and stop. I mean, let's not glorify people who think that winning an election is about buying noisemakers to make noise for you. It doesn't work that way. The delegates are very rational and discerning people. And once again, I salute the delegates in Ningo-Prampram because they've had their heads properly screwed on. They've been clear and emphatic in their voice to the rest of the country that don't take us for granted. We're serious people in Ningo-Prampram. We don't deal with jokers.
Well, it sounds like
we're serious people.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying that the media seems to always expect you to lose. Do you think perhaps the media doesn't like you? Is that the conclusion you're drawing?
I've got loads of friends in the media. I've got relationships with the entire panel that's interviewing me. I consider you as friends. However, it's obviously clear that editorial policy most times, I don't know, maybe it's because the name Sam George sells. It makes for good headlines, and the fact that you run a headline, the media is also driven by clickbait and viewership, and so it's possible that that's why you always want to create that kind of hype and create that kind of sensationalism. Hey, Sam George is going to lose, and this, and it gives you the eyeballs and the clicks that you want. So the reality always is determined at the ballot box. I wouldn't say the media hates me. The media has been a very good ally of mine in this country. In many of the campaigns I have run in this country, be it against the closure of the radio stations when Eslawusu took that draconian action, or be it even in my ongoing fight against the poorly implemented SIM re-registration process, or to this anti-LGBTQ fight, the media has been a willing ally. You've stood by me all the way. You've given me a platform. So it'll be wrong on my part to say you hate me. But when it comes to elections, I just say, take your time and get the analysis done. There was a poll that was done in my constituency on these elections by Global Info Analytics. They're one of the best polling agencies in Ghana. But people would not give it the prominence that they would give to, for example, a bedroom poll done by Ben Epson. That would always say that Sam George will lose. That will get more prominence over Global Info Analytics. And that leads me to ask myself, when was the last time Ben Epson got a poll right? But yet he's always giving prominence when he says Sam George is going to lose, and they ran with that story. He's called every election I've run, he's called it against me, and everyone I've put eggs in his face, you know. Yet the media will give that more prominence than something from Global Info Analytics. Global Info Analytics said I was leading with 56%. I won this election with 63%, almost 63%. That's a more credible poll to follow.
Now, do you think your most recent campaign, if you will, the LGBTQ, the anti-LGBTQ bill, do you think that also played a role in your victory? Do you think the fact that you've been quite prominent with that could have contributed to your success as well?
I'll be a political novice to think that it did not. And at this point in time, I would want to say a very big thank you to every Ghanaian. Look, the support that I enjoyed on this campaign has transcended political parties. There are people in the NPP who made calls to delegates in my constituency and said, look, I am so and so, I'm an MPP person, but look, when it comes to the safety of our children and tomorrow for our country, I support Sam George on what he's doing. And so please vote for him. Make sure you vote for Sam George. And so I had support from across the spectrum. The National Chief Imam's Office, which is part of the coalition, through COMOG, the Coalition of Muslim Organizations, the Sunday before the election, was in my constituency, working with Muslim delegates and working on the Muslim delegates. The Christian Council, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, the Catholic Bishops Conference, through the coalition, issued a statement endorsing myself and my 7 other colleagues, or the other 6 in the NDC, and the Honorable Ntim Forjo, and stating their support for us. I will not, for the life of me, discount the importance of that kind of support. But again, such respectable bodies would only follow a credible candidate and follow someone who is pursuing a worthy cause. And so, like I said, whilst I had that support, my opponent also had support from the other side. The other side was sending messages. They were sending money. They were actively involved on the ground as well. And so I've always said, what is source for the goods is source for the gander. If he had support from the other side that thought that my bill was inimical to them, and those who feel that they sided with my bill stood with me, they were welcome. And I'm most grateful to them for it. And I can assure them of one thing. When Parliament resumes, it's full steam ahead, all guns blazing. And let me once again, on the point I heard the former Chief Whip made, Honorable Muntaka Mubarak, I owe him a ton of gratitude for where this bill has gotten to. Because as Chief Whip, he stood on the floor and told the Speaker and the NPP side at the time that he was going to resist any government motion that came from the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, if they did not, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, if they did not prioritize our bill, because our bill had gotten stuck at the committee and was being frustrated. It was that kind of decisive leadership that has brought us to the place where right now we're at second reading. And I owe him a ton of gratitude. My colleagues and I owe him a ton of gratitude for standing as leader at that time to insist, despite the dissenting voices, both inside and outside of the party, against the bill. But this is a bill that we will fight in a bipartisan manner, because like I said, there is massive support on the MPP side, massive support on the NDC side for this bill, and we'll continue to push it. It's unfinished business. The people of Ghana, through the delegates in Ningo-Prampram, have sent me back to Parliament. I take it effectively, even though this is just a primaries. They've sent me back to to Parliament to represent the people of Ningo-Prampram to ensure that this scourge and this canker from the West is dealt with and dealt with appropriately. And again, just like Honorable Muntaka said, people say Ningo-Prampram is a safe seat. In 2015, when I beat Honorable E.T. Mensah to become the candidate, people have forgotten, or people fail to realize, that the margin of victory of the NDC over the NPP in Ningo-Prampram was just 3,000 votes. 3,000 votes. That's not a safe seat. 3,000 votes. In 1 year as parliamentary candidate, by 2016, when we went into that election, despite the internal opposition, which everybody in this country knows, there's no need to play the ostrich. The fact that my predecessor fought me openly, supported the NPP. The fact that the gentleman who contested me in 2019 and on Saturday openly went around campaigning skirt and blouse and saying no 9, no 10. We increased the margin of victory from 3,000 to 10,000 votes. In 2020, once again, when those internal forces stood up and fought against us, working collectively with the branch executives who are the delegates today, we increased the margin of victory from 10,000 to 30,000. And so the gap between the NDC and the NPP in Ningo-Prampram is bigger than some constituencies. There are some constituencies in Ghana where their entire voters register, not one party's votes. The entire voters register is 28,000. Our margin of victory is bigger than the entire constituency's voter register. That's the work Sam George and the delegates in Ningo-Prampram have done. And so today people sit back and say, oh, it's a safe seat, anybody who wins there. But it is conscious, calculated work. And that's why when I say that we've got 50,000 votes total for John Mahama, we're going to make it 100,000 in 2024. There is a plan. There is a roadmap to achieving it. It's hard work. It's serious hard work. It's not radio hype. It's not radio talk. I do a lot of media, Kojo and Winston. But if you'll be honest, you realize that one of the things I seldom talk about is the work I do in the constituency. because I keep saying that it's local politics. My media engagements are national politics and national issues. But when it comes to Ningo-Prampram, I keep it local. I keep my eyes on the ball there, and will continue to do that. And I'm extremely grateful to the people of Ningo-Prampram and the delegates and the clergy, both Muslim, Christian, and traditional, who stood by me in this battle. And we will continue. Light indeed has prevailed over darkness.
Thank you. If you just joined us, we're talking to Sam George and Muntaka Mubarak. Both of them triumphed in their constituencies over the weekend, becoming the candidates for Parliament in Asawase and Ningo-Prampram.
Yes, let me get back to you, Honorable Muntaka. You made a point that, look, when it gets to the extreme partisanship should stop. You say people should not sit in party offices and be writing letters to Parliament. An indication that you're against, political parties wanting to direct how their MPs should vote on issues?
Yes, they are not supposed to do that. You are supposed to engage them. And when I was chief whip throughout that way, I've always insisted that. Yes, we don't have all the ideas. We don't sit and say that because we are parliamentarians. We don't expect because party play role in our becoming MPs. So we discuss that, and then we come into an agreement that, okay, because you bring the views, we'll bring ours, we'll fine-tune it, we'll come into an amicable and take a position. Then now we take a position that is collective, then we'll go and implement. But you don't sit and write as if you are the headmaster to students. It is wrong in a democracy. In fact, it is check where democracy is well entrenched and well placed and running very well. It's Parliament, the parliamentary wing that runs the party, not the other way around. If you go to the UK, especially at least the one that I know, even both the Labour and the Conservative, when their leaders are elected as maybe the minority leader, where we call minority leader, the opposition leader, he appoints the general secretary. Go to the American Congress and see. The party is run from Parliament. It's run from the National Assembly. But unfortunately, because ours is a teaching one, and remember how we started, where in the case of MPP, largely they started the party in opposition, fiercely resisting a military regime till the democracy came, and then they came to Parliament. So when they were setting up their party rules, constitution, is structured the way it is, we had the military leader and the fear to lose control and order. But if you look even within our own political parties, the both political parties' constitutions, you don't see where they drive this authority that they are trying to, give themselves. And I keep saying that it is wrong today, it is wrong tomorrow, it will continue to be wrong. You need to engage. When you engage, you better get people, that way you let people own it. Even in our natural day-to-day running of even our business, look at Joy and others. A lot of people have moved from this, control, I've forgotten the term, where you just control people. You try to let people, you get their buy-in. You let them appreciate what is going on and why we should take a certain position. And then together, and I can bet you, let me use this one as a typical example. My brothers, did you know that we were planning to elect our own speaker even 5 days before the day? You didn't know because we were strategizing quietly. Yeah. Today, everything is done in the social media. You are writing, you are doing this. You don't run a strategic group that way. You need to have people who are strategically behind the scene, pushing the note. So before people will realize you are hitting. Since we started this parliament, the 137, one of our biggest challenge is that people want to go and speak in media and say that this is what we are going to do. And your opponent will obviously strategize. And then when the thing fails, then you are on your side of the parliament and calling them names. Because you need to learn that strategy is not discussed in the open, in the public. So you don't, this writing, and unfortunately both political parties are doing it. That's why I'm speaking to it. Probably if it was only my party, I will only speak to it when we are in a closed meeting. But both parties are doing it. And I say, it is wrong. It is wrong. They must learn to use a better way of engaging. Fortunately, both the National Chairman and the General Secretary, in our case, NDC, have been members of Parliament before. And sometimes I wonder when they were in Parliament, I don't know what they learned in Parliament. I have stayed in Parliament longer than any of them have stayed in Parliament. Unfortunately and graciously, I've served in leadership. Even the number of years I've served in leadership alone is longer than at least some of them, even the time they spend in Parliament. And I can tell you, I'm speaking from experience. Parliamentarians come from their various constituencies with huge ego. Every parliamentarian that you see in that chamber, he's coming like a village chief, because he's coming from his place as a village champion. He's coming as the overlord in terms of politics. He's coming. So if somebody comes from Nanton, you may say that maybe he's coming from a faraway place. But from his village or from that town, he is the overlord in terms of politics.
Okay.
So when the person comes and is in Parliament, you manage those people, their egos. If you want to use them to even do something that sometimes rationally, sometimes you want to do something, you yourself know that we are doing this for political reasons, but you want to cut the support of people who may not want to go because they think that no, this is too political. You try to manage their ego. But when you make it look as if they don't matter, you can sit and instruct, you get it wrong 100 times. Anytime you do it, you get it wrong. Okay. Anytime you try to hide the thing in the media before you go and implement it, you get it wrong. I really wish both political parties would sit down and find an avenue of meeting. And I must say this, Dr. Komede may so rest in peace. He saw this about a decade and a half, because in 2010 thereabout, he saw it and said that, look, we have to start engaging our political parties. He took us to the MPP national headquarters. They were excited to have received us. When we were going, a lot of fanatics on our side were angry, saying that, why? We are in government. Why are you taking us there? It looks like we are taking us out, as if we are a coward, as if we are afraid of them. He said, no, we must reach out first.
Okay.
But we are in government. He took us there, but the other side didn't, they promised to also pay a visit. They didn't. If that had happened, probably they would have created an avenue where the political parties can be sitting and be looking at the things that is happening, how do you repeat? Because whether we like it or not, the two major political parties are now those who are shaping our democracy. If they shape it right, we'll get the right kind of democracy. If
now,
they shape it wrong, we'll get it wrong.
Would you say that you were targeted because of your position, that the party cannot control Parliament but should be engaging Parliament?
Well, I will not. If you ask me and I say yes, then I have to provide my evidence. But sometimes I wonder why a lot of people within the party chose to target me and target me for removal. I wonder, because look, I keep asking myself, of all the good things I've done, look at where my constituency is located. I picked this constituency when it was most difficult to keep it. NPP was bent on taking it. President Kufuor named it as Golden Seat, with votes that is hovering at that time around 30,000. Grown that constituency to over 50,000 vote constituency. In the Lions Den, still keeping it and growing it, try to solidify it. At least I've done a lot of good to the party. You remember the 2008 runoffs. In fact, the late Professor Moss made me in charge of the whole region, election. We had to bring agents across the region to come and assist us. All this, we did a lot of things. In Parliament, I want to believe, even my arch enemy in Parliament, over the period that I've served as a whip, will count several times that I have distinguished myself and stood very strongly for my party. I don't know what I've done, but I want to believe that the God that we serve is a fair God. That's why on judgment they say there's a scale. So on the scale of things, do you think that I've become so terrible that the manner and the caliber of persons that were ganging up to remove me, do they think that was fair? It's sad that God is not their relative. God doesn't hate. He doesn't hate. Will not hate somebody because you hate that person. Let's learn to appreciate that. Look, there are points in a human institution. There are times that you may disagree. When you disagree, it doesn't mean it must be turned into hatred.
Okay.
We have to look at the good at each and every one of us. I am happy that this is over. And believe me, putting everything behind me, putting them in the dustbin. That's why I'm not mentioning names. I mean, those who were calling people to tell them not to support me, people who were calling business people to ask them to support my opponent,
while you're not mentioning
run into my constituency and do all manner of things. I'm not going to name anybody publicly. Me, I'm putting all this behind me. Me and my supporters are grateful to God. God has done it for us. We need to be focused. NDC must win the 2024 election. We have to be focused at this. We have to try to unite ourselves. We have to try to forgive each other. We have to try to make our party look more attractive so that we can win the 2024 for at least the survival of the party. Because if may God forbid, may God even perish the thought that we go and lose the 2024 election, it is going to put our party in a very difficult situation. That will have meant all the toil all of us have made. I mean, almost all my youthful aid have been exhausted in this party. I cannot, even if my life will have to be lost, I think I'll be ready to sacrifice it for the party to be better off, so that future generation can remember that someone, Muntaka, probably had to lose his life for the party to be better. But let's stop this unnecessary beastly. Look, these are colleagues who had gone for election. If you were to call people and allow them to speak, those who have lost, some who have won, and they are to tell you how people have poked their nose into their constituencies, you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked how people have decided to put their fingers across the constituencies. This was something that as chief whip, I will never agree.
Talking about people,
I will never agree. If I hear any person doing that, I will have insisted that the person be brought to book. Look at numbers that we've lost. I'm hearing 17, 16.
Yes.
Whichever it is, that is too large a number. Because in 2009 and 2000, prior to the 2020 election, we were only 109 in the chamber. With the leader Haruna, we worked so hard to make sure that minimum loss was achieved. Only 9 people lost. If you strike it even by percentages, you see that was a smaller percentage than the loss today.
Okay, so I mean, talking about people poking their nose into your constituency and all of that, I mean, I just would have to do this. I saw, for instance, your competitor posting a picture of himself and the national organizer of your party, joining him and some of the delegates and residents to breakfast. Is that a national officer you're making reference to?
You call names. I won't call names. I've told you.
I saw that. I saw
that. Breaking my party.
So that's the national organizer.
I'm drawing the attention because many people know many others who have done calls.
Yeah, but while you won't call names, you're not doubting the information I'm putting out.
Well, I'm telling you that I'm not going to call names. I won't call
you're
names
not doubting.
Public.
You're not denying the information too.
Person, and regardless of the hate, I'm not going to stand in the public to wish NDC bad or to say that NDC should break or to exacerbate the confusion. I'm only drawing attention that, look, we have a lot of work to do, especially our Council of Elders. I appreciate their position. They are only advisory. But you see, when you have elders, where most of the thing that they do is to say, I will beg you, for the sake of our collective unity, can we just let bygone be bygone? When you allow too many bygone be bygone, let it go. Those offending officers will continue to do it because they know when they do it,
Yes, in this case, you say those offenders will continue to do that. We shouldn't always do let bygones be bygones. I have provided the information. You are not mentioning. All I'm asking you is this: you're not saying what I've said is not true, right?
All I'm telling you that I'm not going to mention any name because
but I have mentioned the name.
I'm drawing attention because obviously after all this, the party will have to do a lot of retrospection. The strike bearer now is the leader of the party. I really pray and hope that he will appreciate that those who chose to put their fingers in people's constituencies will not be given leading role. He will not give them leading role because if he does give them leading role, what he's simply going to do is that he's going to exacerbate the antagonism. Because look, there are two sides of the coin. You try to mess me up to lose my constituency. I've won. Others, you try to mess them. Yes, they've been messed. They've lost. Whichever way, if you put these people as lead persons, they are not going to get cooperation from these kind of people. There's no way if some of the guys that I know very well, who were working very hard to get me lose my constituency, say that they want to come to my constituency and work. There's no way I'll welcome them. I can't. Because I'm a human being. I would rather prefer a neutral person who had not mingle himself or herself in other person's constituency to come and work together. So I hope that our flag bearer, I know obviously an opportunity will come where we'll all be talking. Such people should not be given leading roles. They should be asked to take a second role, because if they take leading role, believe me, they are going to be facing antagonism as they go round. And I don't think that will augur well for us in our fight for the 2024 election. Because look, they've created a lot of bitterness in people.
Yeah, Mr. Muntaka, in light of this bitterness that has been created, how difficult is it going to be for the NDC to have a united front going into 2024? Are you expecting some division in the party?
No, I don't, because you see, all of us, regardless of what happened, those who are hurt, those who are not hurt, those who have lost, those who have won, I can bet you one thing is common. We all know that, may God forbid, if we don't work hard and we win the next election, we will set a bad precedent that we are the only political party that could not regain power in 8 years. And I think that fear of losing 2024 election is so great for each and every one. Because you see, before someone becomes a member of parliament, believe me, very, very, very few people just walk in naively to become a member of parliament. There are people who understand politics. There are people who really know the implications of things. And because of the fear of losing the 2024 election and the impact that it will make on all of us as collective and even our future generation, our children, I believe that is strong enough to unite us, because all of us know, may God forbid, may God perish the thought. If we dare joke and we lose 2024 election, we will be putting our party in a very, very, very difficult situation.
Okay.
So because of that, I believe that we can use that to rally around, regardless of the pain. Let's make this our goal so that we can win. So when we win, then we can settle whatever scores that are between us.
Very good. I want to wrap up with Sam George, if I may. Sam George, has your main opponent called to congratulate you? You know, have you had the opportunity to speak since the contest ended?
About 2 hours ago this morning, he called me. We had a maybe 50 seconds conversation where he called to say that he had been resting yesterday and he just wanted to call and say congratulations on my victory. And I said, well, I was grateful for his call. I thanked him for the contest and wished him well.
Do you expect him to rally behind you in 2024?
I've been elected as candidate. It's my responsibility to provide victory for John Mahama and the NDC, and that's what the focus is. Everyone who seeks to work with us is welcome. We would accommodate everyone who comes on board willingly to work with us.
Okay. We've got just a few minutes to go, so something I'm curious to get your opinions on. We obviously covered the whole election extensively, and in one constituency, Ejura Sechiri Dumasi, there were images of one of the contenders throwing money to the crowds. There was also in the central region another constituency where one of the candidates loaded a truck with rice and put his picture on it and parked it in front of the election center. Your chairman at the end of it, General Mosquito, actually said that these elections have proved that money doesn't buy you victory in the NDC. What are your thoughts on these particular incidents, these two that I mentioned, the spraying of money, the provision of rice? What are your thoughts on candidates who seek to do that?
Well, in all honesty, I have seen a picture, not a video, of someone, a very grainy picture of someone at the top of a vehicle with what appears to be paper or money or whatever in there. I've not seen the video. I've not had time to respond or be active on social media. As for the rice images in the central region, I haven't seen. And so you're bringing this to my attention. But you know my position. I mean, I had a conversation with Lexis Bill on your platform about the role of money and the monetization of our politics. My constituency was a classic example. The kinds of monies and kinds of things and offers and promises that were made to delegates. However, the delegates made their mind. And so I agree with General Afedu Nketia, the national chairman of the NDC. So the NDC delegates are not interested in how much money or who has more money. If you have largesse from wherever you've gotten and you want to throw around, they will take it from you, and they will make an informed decision, like Honorable Muntaka said, on who represents the best chance of the party coming back to power. So our delegates are, well, you've gone to get your money from wherever you want to trade around. Feel free. We'll help you take it. And I told my delegates, when they bring the money, take it. When they send the money to your Momo, take it. But when you get to the ballot box, know that whatever they send to you will not take care of you for 4 years. What will take care of you for 4 years is a credible government with proper representation. And like I said, across the country and in Ningo-Prampram, which I will use as a yardstick, I saw people decide not to follow people who came bearing goodies and making huge promises. I mean, promises are what have led us to where we are as a country today. Huge gargantuan promises, zero performance.
Bearing in mind that this breaches the rules, do you think the party should call for investigations?
Well, I'm in no position to direct the national executives on what steps to take. I believe that we've elected national executives as a political party to take such decisions. I've been elected as a member of Parliament to represent the party in Parliament. I will take decisions on that as a member of Parliament. When it comes to administrative decisions in the party, I think that the elected officers have that as their mandate. I would want to respect their mandate.
I mean, you never shy away from expressing your opinion. What would your opinion be on whether this should be investigated?
Well, for me, the point I'm making is simple. It's their decision to make. But if anybody takes action that breaches our rules, be they as a party or the electoral rules of our country, it's only right that the necessary remedial administrative steps are taken and actions are taken. And this should actually help us strengthen our vetting procedure and vetting processes, and be careful about the kinds of persons who we even clear to contest. What are their motivations? What are their motives? And so I am one who is a stickler for discipline, and I would maintain and insist that if anybody has fallen foul of our regulations, be they as a party or as the country, the right sanction should apply.
All right. Perhaps I'll get final thoughts from Mr. Muntaka on this. This idea of inducement with money. There are some who are suggesting that one of the presidential aspirants did pretty much the same thing by giving 40 cedis to each delegate for transportation. What would your take be on that? And general, in the general view on using money as inducement.
Well, I mean, I must admit that this use of money is one other threat to our democracy. It is not only within the primaries, but even in the main elections. How sometimes individuals, and especially when you are in government, and this one, when I say when you are in government, I'm talking to both parties when they've had the opportunity to be in government, the way we use money. I must tell you that that's a big threat to our democracy, and we must all watch it. But you see, we'll come to a point where, can you imagine, in my constituency, when they were going for the branch elections, they said, oh, MP, this one, you have to help us. So now I have to pay for everybody's, dues. It's not much, but about 6 cedis for about 6 or 12 cedis for every delegate when they were going to contest their branch elections. Pay their filing fee of about 10 cedis or so. I mean, for 10 cedis, you may say, oh, it's nothing. But you ask the person as a member of the party, what is his or her contribution? We are making it look as if all their use is for them to be used for election, so they go and vote. And then by voting, they are doing you a favor, and therefore they have to be paid. And now the thing is escalating to a point that it's becoming like almost a birthright. In my conscience, that was one of the things that my opponent was using that obviously made him to gain some grounds. So they will meet you, oh, Muntaka has been there for 18 years. You as individual, what have you got? It has to take people to say that, look, our schools have been fixed. Our roads have been done. We have a better road in Smart more than almost all the other constituencies. What are you talking about? They say, oh, no. After that one, it is every government will do that, but as an individual, what have you gotten? Because it has become a business of entitlement. And once people feel entitled, then you will see that when I heard you play a video or I heard you play a voice where a group were chanting that 40 cities have been given them and that money hasn't come in, it has not been paid to them, therefore they will not even vote. That entitlement is a threat to our democracy. And the two political parties, you see, because they are not talking to each other, that is what is partly creating the problem that we are all having. If they were talking to each other, believe me, the best way is to make sure that every member of MPP can vote in an election. Every member of NDC can vote in an election in the constituency. But the caveat is that you should have been a dues-paying person who is update. You paid all your dues, so you have contributed to the run of the party, and therefore you now have a right to also choose who leads. You see, but when we make it the way it is selective, you select some few individuals. In Asawase, you have about just 2,000 people who are going to take a decision. For the NDC who are even voting in Asawase are more than 70,000. That's obviously that becomes an avenue for inducement. And I'm not surprised. Those novices in Jura and other places will go spraying money. When I saw the video, I was so ashamed. And thank God she didn't win. Can you imagine she had sprayed this money and won? What would have been the division of the new division of NDC?
So what do you think of
somebody sharing rice, telling them I'm giving every delegate a bag of rice, and he's bold to say it openly.
So what do you think of Mr. John Mahama giving every delegate 40 cedis? Do you think that was also wrong?
Realistic, my brother. For example, in Asawase, the farthest place in Asawase to maybe where we voted is called Parkoso. The cost of transport to ferry you from that place to the central mosque and go back in Asawase is about 22 cedis. It's about 22 Ghana cedis. Now the person comes, he has to come and stand, especially the way hours delayed. Stay there the whole day. We had to quickly provide food. That 8 cedis I was giving him in Kumasi, you cannot get a good meal for 8 cedis, or at least for 18 cedis, with the balance of 18 cedis. So I believe that yes, if the party had resources where the party has been taking dues, then each constituency will manage its own thing by providing food, by providing buses to convey the people and other things. Then the government will not need to send a dime to anybody. But the party is not strong enough to do that. Now, John Mahama wants delegates to be able to come and vote. If you don't give them the transport, someone says that, look, this morning, I'm ready not to go to work.
But does that not create an undue advantage for Mr. John Mahama as a candidate in the same election?
Transport. Yeah, you see the conflict of interest. Do you give the transport? Can that influence the person? If you don't give the transport, will they be able to convey the people there? So you are stuck up in a dilemma. But I must admit, we must do everything to take every person out of this game. So that people who are going, because I know in abroad, sometimes our colleagues abroad will tell you, in their case, their delegate put out money to support their campaign.
Yeah, indeed. That's an interesting contrast there. Mr. Muntaka Mubarak, Honourable Member of Parliament for Asawase, and Mr. Sam George, Honourable Member of Parliament for Ningo-Prampram. Thank you both for your time with us this morning. I wish we could continue the conversation. It is interesting, but we appreciate your time very, very much.